So I think this is a very special COP when it comes to unlocking finance. This is, I think it'll go down in history as the finance COP. And we've seen that commitment, for example, from the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero, with the commitment of 130 trillion towards climate-related ends. We've seen a call for reporting in this space. Very important announcement on Wednesday about the International Sustainability Standards Board being established. We're seeing a real commitment from the sector to mobilise. Yes, there are barriers, there are challenges when it comes to how do you unlock finance and get it to where it's needed. And we're asking some of the big questions ourselves here with the GHS at COP summit that we're hosting in this building, working with the Green Finance Institute and with the backing of a large range of sponsors from across the sector, sponsors and partners from across the sector. We're asking those big questions. How do we finance transition and growth? How do we mobilise finance into emerging and developing markets? How do we develop a consistent set of rules, a global playbook, we're calling it? And how do we price both carbon and nature? So in each of those, there's some very big questions to unpack. That's what we're seeking to do with our panels, with our meetings, and that's what we'll be working on for the future, so that it's also an action COP, not just talk.
The trouble is, right now, there's a legacy you have in the city of having funded a lot of these fossil fuel companies. What do you feel about that, and where are you going to go with that?
So I think there are two questions here. There's what has happened in the past and the financing of fossil fuels and so on, and there's the future. There's the journey to net zero that we're all embarking on. Now, the city has been at the forefront of developing green financing solutions for some time. We've seen some of the earliest green bonds issued through London. We've seen some of the financing mechanisms developed. What we need to do is now take that and actually supercharge the delivery into the real economy. I think that has to be the next step. Unlock those fantastic products and mechanisms that the city is expert in, and use it on the transition to net zero. That doesn't mean divesting from fossil fuels tomorrow. We have to carry people, communities, businesses with us. I think Mark Carney has said in the past that there are 50 shades of green, one of them being brown. We do need to look at that journey.
But it's a very emotive argument, isn't it? Particularly for young people. They don't see it that way. They see it as a very polarised view that the city is doing this stuff and it shouldn't. How do you respond to that? How do you communicate that to younger people?
Well, that's a very good question and a very good challenge. And I'm pleased that we've just had on our screens a young people's panel. Personally, I think we need further conversations to try to explain exactly why transition is important, and it can't be just turning off a switch. I think at the end of the day, though, our credibility will depend on these standards, on two things: on the standards that are set and the transparency and the data, so that people actually know that when they put money into something, it is having the impact that it says on the tin. And then I think the second question is this question of action and delivery, really supercharging how we move that finance into the solutions.
Let's move away from COP. Let's talk about the City of London. What are you doing yourselves in the Corporation of London on your pathway to net zero?
So last October, a year ago now, we adopted our own climate action strategy. A climate action strategy which is based on science and on careful consideration of the evidence. It's very ambitious. It sees us achieve net zero across our own direct operations by 2027 and our whole value chain by 2040. And it sees us working with city stakeholders to see a net zero square mile by 2040. That is informing all our decisions at the moment. And it's going to be really critical as we go forward with that strategy that we work with the businesses in the city and look at how what they can do in partnership with us to help on their own journey to net zero.
Are you hearing positive voices? Have they got their ears open, or do you get a range of views?
So look, I think the transition is a challenge for everybody, and we've just come out of a pandemic. Have we come out of a pandemic? Yeah. We're just looking to recover from a pandemic, which has really hit a lot of our businesses, our SMEs, not the big financial sector so much, but the SMEs hard. adding an extra layer of consideration. How do I reduce my emissions? How do I finance the steps I need to take to get my building in a better shape? And indeed, how do I comply with new reporting requirements, or whatever? Those are going to be big challenges for some of the businesses. We're working with an organisation called Heart of the City, which is specifically working with city SMEs, and has been doing some work with them about that journey. I know that there are other partners out there, such as the banks themselves, actually wanting to help. But there's no getting away from the fact that this will mean difficult questions for all of us. But it's a journey we have to go on.
One of the things that I suppose really could make a big difference is a carbon market, and my personal view is that out of COP we get something like that. Do you think that could work, and what role do you see for the city in sort of hosting a market like that?
Absolutely, because I think the city has the ecosystem that's needed all the way through, from the platforms and exchanges and so on, to the advisors who can help develop the products, and the access to the global players who operate through London. So I think as carbon markets are developed, London is a very natural base, at least one of the global bases for them. I think in terms of how we price and so on, actually, that's what we're asking today. That's what the nature of the debate on at our summit today is all about. Difficult questions, but we need to find a way.
What's your hope from this COP?
It needs to be a delivery COP. It needs to be a delivery COP, and we need to see action flowing after it. I hope the UK and Italy use the rest of the year of their presidency to make sure we really do move forward.
And what are we going to see ourselves? If we go to the city now, you talk about this transition, what changes will we see?
You will see changes in our streetscape. The traffic-free area around Bank is actually more to do with our transport strategy, but it all ties in with our having clean air, but also with climate change. But we've also we've also made changes to our planning rules. We look carefully at how people propose to demolish buildings, how they propose to build them. You'll see a lot more greenery around the city, and I hope you have already. So you will see changes in the physical nature of the city as you go through it. But it will remain the great heart of London's financial. It'll remain a great global financial centre, great heart of business. It will just be the greenest global financial centre. That's our aspiration.
And just to end, are you hopeful?
I'm actually very positive, but there's a huge
great.
job to be done.
No, but you need that. You need that from the leaders, don't you? You've got to be positive about it. Otherwise, people just won't buy into it.
Yes, we have to be positive. We have to move.
Catherine McGuiness, thanks for joining us on FutureNetZero.com.
Thank you.